Welcome ladies and gentlemen, Tactical Lich here, and today we are back to the 4th game in the best of 5 series between BBB's Chief and ODM's Chosen One. Now, for the armies, both players are actually going for an Elven Tide build, with Chief here going for a full 20 stack Wood Elf army, while the Chosen One also has 18 units in their army build right now. For the Wood Elf army, we can see a front line of Dryads, 5 of them in fact, full capping the unit, and at the back 5 Eternal Gods without shields, protecting 3 Glade Gods, as well as 3 more Glade Riders with spears. These guys are going as a mobility reaction forces to counteract any enemy cavalry. As you can see here, Dark Elves are going for quite a cavalry heavy build. Now for the leadership, we have a Branch Wraith coming in with the healing spell Earthblood, as well as a Scroll of Protection. Now in the frontline skirmishing, we have the Way Stalker here as a little bit of additional firepower, also coming in with a few supporting abilities, including Prey of NF Rayma for crowd control and Dragon's Breath attack. At the same time, there's also a Glade Rider unit deployed all the way on the other side of the battlefield, seeking opportunities to surprise their opponents. As for the Dark Elf army, the Dread Spears and Bleak Swords mixed into the front line. They are charging into the Dryad front line with the support of Cold One Knights mixed in with Dark Riders. Also, 2 Cheese Runners shooting away at the Glade Lord, and Malekith bringing the Gaze of Malice and Soul Stealer supporting his army. Now in the front line, the engagements are going well underway, with the Dryads happily bashing away at the Dark Elves, trading very cost effectively with their aggressive attack stats. Also, some Cold One Knights attempting to go around the Dryads and shut down the Glade Gods, but being intercepted by Glade Riders and Eternal Gods. The Azrai Spears will be cutting them down with their reliance on armor. The armor-piercing anti-large Eternal Gods will be very effective against them, especially they cannot run away easily from the Glade Riders' pursuit. Now, however, in the middle, with the combination of Cold One Knights and the Bleak Swords, Dryads were not able to hold back the tide of Dark Elves, and they will be crushing through the Wood Elf front line with their sheer weight. A nice breath attack from the Forest Dragon though, blasting away some of these Bleak Swords and also routing the Dark Riders with a drop attack. And with that, some of these Glade Gods are secured, and the Eternal Gods will be protecting them to safety so that they can fire once again. Malekith this time going for a Cold One Mount, sacrificing killing power for a smaller hitbox. Still, the Cold One Knights are more than enough to dumpster the Dryads. The Branch Wraith is desperately trying to sustain the front line with healing, but it's not quite enough here. Glade Riders trying to hold back the Cheese Runners and the Cold One Knights, but they will be routed soon. With the Wood Elf infantry faltering in the middle, Malekith was able to punch through and pursue the Branch Wraith. Glade Lord will be jumping down to intercept him, but then again, Malekith is definitely a powerful melee combatant, and he will be quickly punching back, doing some noticeable damage to the Forest Dragon. On the side, we can see that some Glade Gods are routed by a swarm of Dark Elf mobility. The Cold One Knights even charging into the back of the Eternal Gods, but this might be a mistake, as they are now taking anti-large armor-piercing damage from the Azrai Spears. Now back to the single entity fight here. Malekith, despite being surrounded by anti-large armor-piercing spears and 2 single entities, he still has some secret weapons in his back pocket. The most important one, the Soul Stealer, draining the health away from the surrounding units, and more importantly, healing his health up, giving himself a little bit more time to the Scourge Runners, who are just firing away at the Glade Lord, taking massive damage from this anti-large armor-piercing skirmish fire. As for the infantry fight though, the Dark Elves are in a major disadvantage, as the Dryads have broken through a whole bunch of Dread Spears and Bleak Swords. Actually, these are still fighting, but they are hanging on by a thread for sure. Even the Eternal Gods are able to keep the Dread Spears busy for much longer than they would like. This helps Chief to secure some Glade Gods and free up other Eternal Gods to support other engagements. Malekith still fighting down here, as the Glade Lord is being topped up by some Earthbloods, but then the problem is that a whole lot of Cold One Knights are surrounding her. The anti-large armor-piercing attacks of these Cold One Cavalry will be dishing out massive damage to the Glade Lady. She'll try to extract herself from this engagement, with the Eternal Gods and Glade Riders covering her retreat. But then a great response from the Chosen One, slamming those Cheese Runners into the face of the Forest Dragon, blocking its retreating path. This is one of the great things about Cheese Runner chariots. They can fulfill multiple roles on the battlefield. They might be running low on ammo right now and no longer has that firepower, but they sure do have the mass. They successfully kept the Glade Lord pinned on the ground for a few more seconds, and these few seconds are crucial, allowing any Cold War Knights who are still in base contact with the Forest Dragon and any point blank fire of the Scourge Runners to do a bit more damage to the Glade Lord, triggering her rout. If we look at her leadership breakdown, we can see that the damage sustained leadership debuff is way above her base value leadership, and that means she'll have a really difficult time regrouping from this route. Still, the Wood Elves has an advantage in everywhere else of the battlefield, with some Bleak Swords eventually going to be routed by the Waystalker, and then the Eternal Gods still grinding against the Dread Spears. Dark Elves still have their mobility available, but they're mostly depleted. Especially the Wood Elves still have a whole lot of anti-large infantry lying around, all these Eternal Gods still relatively healthy. Even if the Dark Elves pull off rear charges with their cavalry, they'll still be taking losses in front of the armor-piercing anti-large Azrai spears. Also, there are two quite healthy single entities on the Wood Elf side propping up their balance of power. One of them can even use Earthblood for some mass healing, further tipping the balance in their favor. The Eternal Gods are getting their health topped up, while the Scourge Runner chariots are all taking massive attrition damage as long as they charge into and stay in melee fights. You can see one of them is already breaking after taking too much damage from the Eternal Gods. Now let us fast forward as the combat pace slows down. Malekith drives himself into the blob, trying to focus down the single entities of the Wood Elves, especially the Branch Wraith, who is constantly healing surrounding units. This is not an easy task as there's just too many Wood Elf supporting elements surrounding him, while his own mobile support, the Cheese Runners and the Dark Riders, all are taking significant losses every time they charge in. Seeing that this engagement is not going in his favor, Chosen One will be avoiding combat while there are some Dark Elves chasing off some routed Dryads to fulfill the attacking rule. He attempts with another Alpha Strike using Soul Stealer to weaken the blob of Wood Elves as well as topping up Malekith's health. The problem is Soul Stealer is a self-healing spell, so the Dark Riders, after taking damage without healing, they will be the first unit to rout. With all the Wood Elves in the forest, the Dark Elves are in no rush to attack, they can simply wait for the Wood Elves to come out. To avoid forest camping, Chief will be marching his army forward. And as soon as the first Wood Elf set foot outside the forest, the Dark Elves will be launching an all-out attack, charging in everything they've got. But the Dark Elf cavalry simply cannot outgrind Wood Elf spears. The Druchii leadership falters, and that means the Wood Elves will be taking this win. For a quick rundown of army performances, the Glade Riders did okay, not amazing. One of them actually recovered their value, the other not so much. And the heroes also didn't really do that much damage. They were mostly there to prop up that balance of power, as most of the heavy lifting were done by the Glade Lord, the Dryads and the Eternal Gods. You can see that the Dryads trade pretty decently against any light armored units, and so earning back quite a bit of value for themselves, punching through a bunch of Dread Spears and Bleak Swords. The Eternal Gods, their defensive stats are definitely solid enough to hold their own against Dread Spears, and of course dragging down a whole lot of Cold War Knights and all the Dark Riders, so two of them earned back significantly more than their cost, and the other also recovered a good portion of their value as well. Now the Glade Gods being threatened by so much mobility, they can't really stay in the fight to shoot, so not a lot of value on them, but the Glade Lord managed to get some pretty good damage with their breath attacks and also jumping onto Malekith. It is just that the Cold War Knights on the Dark Elf side were able to drag her down in melee combat, being pinned in by the Scourge Runners. However, the Scourge Runners didn't do that much damage since there's not a lot of good targets to shoot at. The Riders and the infantry are dirt cheap, and the Glade Lord also has a bunch of resistance in terms of missile and physical, so a lot of that damage on the Glade Lord is mitigated despite still doing some noticeable damage. While the Bleak Swords and Dread Spears, they did okay, nothing too amazing, some of them earned back above their cost, but that's about it, as most of the heavy lifting on the Dark Elf army were done by Malekith himself. Soul Stealer spam and being a powerful melee combatant did some significant damage to the Wood Elf army, punching down the Glade Lord and draining away the health of the single entities and blobbed up melee units of the Wood Elves. But in the end, that was not enough to carry the game, as the sheer amount of healing available to the Wood Elves and their anti-large armor-piercing Azrai spears are way too much, and the Dark Elf mobility, elite as they are, simply cannot grind through the Wood Elf tide. Even the powerful Cold War Knights are dragged down in melee combat. Now with Chief winning the 4th game in the series and achieving a 2nd victory for himself, this means we will be ending this series in a 3rd video of the 5th game. If you want to see how this best of 5 match ends, be sure to subscribe to the channel and keep an eye out for new videos. That's it for today, thank you for watching and I'll see you in the next one. Tactical Lich, signing out.